I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. F it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yeah, it does, Bill. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. Thursday, January 23rd. Welcome in, kiddos, to another fabulous Daily Puck Drop here on a Thursday. Thursday shows include our fabulous guests, Michael-Shawn Dugar of The Athletic. He'll join us a little bit later in the program, and Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network. And what is a tradition unlike any other with Garafolo is he makes me nervous and waits when I send him a text. Hey, you okay for today? I never hear back. We'll talk to those guys, all things NFL coming up in Thursday's program. Seahawks OC search. Of course, the NFC, AFC championship games coming up this weekend. Chiefs fatigue we'll get into a little bit later. We got 20 days until pitchers and catchers report. And, of course, we wrap up every Daily Puck Drop with Hey, What the Puck? And we're going to put our focus on Dan Hurly on Hey, What the Puck? So that's everything that's coming up on today's Daily Puck Drop, which, of course, you can catch on YouTube. When you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Also, you can listen to the show live on the Puck Sports mobile apps, iOS and Android. Of course, watch the show live starting at 10 on YouTube and Twitter. And then, of course, listen back to everything on all the podcast platforms. Apple and Spotify are the two big ones. YouTube Music is a great one there as well because you can toggle back and forth between the video and the audio. So if you're watching it and they're like, well, I got to get in the car, you can toggle to the audio and it's going to pick back up right where you left off. And so when you're there, please hit a rating. Please rate the show 5. Gotta be 5, please. And then write a review. And, of course, we've got everything up always at pucksports.com. All right, we got everybody jumping in the chat. If you always want to be a part of the chat, you can do it via YouTube during the live show, also on Twitter. So good morning to Jeff. Both Jeffs are here. Derek is always here. Gary, also Connor, Doug, and we like to call him Goldie. That's somebody's birthday. Whose birthday is it? Somebody, happy birthday to Doug. Doug, is it your birthday? All right. And Doug said, yeah, because Doug's one of those people that says happy birthday to himself. Come on, Doug. Go Cougs. But E1 on you. You can't wish yourself a happy birthday. Someone else has got to do it for you, whether it's on Facebook or some social media platform. All right, you can't be the one that wishes yourself a happy birthday, Doug. It's like giving yourself your own nickname, Doug. Come on. Jeff says, good morning, Puck. Yes, good morning to you, Jeff. Jeff is always in there in the chat. So good morning to everyone. And, again, during the live show, you can always interact with me and our guests via YouTube and Twitter. Happy birthday. Doug is probably Doug, what are you, 25? 27 years of age, probably. I've seen you, Doug. You don't look any, younger than that. Hey, look who's in the chat. Huh? I mean, is that really him? Divish says, good to see you check in, Divish. At least he's in saying his birthday week or birthday month like millennials. I know. I saw a headline today. Was it in the Seattle? No, it wasn't in the Seattle Times. It was just on Twitter. Millennials, for some reason, there's been some big pushback about people getting on them about like going out all night long and dancing and partying. And this one quote from this millennial was, "We're just dancing and having fun. We're going to die when we're old." Yeah, fair point. Yeah, fair point, millennials. I mean, I don't agree with much on what you guys do. And, one from an older generation always never agrees with the younger generation. But on that one, yeah, you know what? Cheers to you. You're damn right. Yeah, you're going to get old and you will die. So you're young, get after it. All right. Quick thing before we get into, we're going to get into the Seahawks OC search, Kansas City Chiefs fatigue. What if Divish left Ichiro off? If you did not catch that on yesterday's show, again, I don't think it's him, but God dang it, it would be funny if it was. Dad's in trouble. Dad is in trouble this morning. Like many of you who have a teenage daughter, well, I would assume you have a teenage daughter. Maybe you don't. But if you do have a teenage daughter or a teenage kid at all, The phones are everywhere. God, these phones. We had to take away the phone from the 11-year-old, which again I think is way too young. We should never have gotten him a phone. Biggest regret ever. I was overruled by the CEO of the family, but hey, whatever. Maybe what has transpired here recently will be taken away forever. But I think he should not have a phone. The 15-year-old again has had a phone for a couple of years, and so what we do is at night, usually around 9:45 or like 10. We take, she can't have it in her room. All right. Just because if she has it in her room, she's going to be on it all night. So we take it away and like, you got to go plug it in downstairs. Well, last night as I was heading downstairs, she goes, "Hey, would you just take my phone downstairs? I don't want to walk downstairs. Can you plug it in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. No problem." So I go downstairs, plug it in. Didn't think anything about it. She gets up this morning, comes downstairs, getting ready for school. And of course, she's always in a hurry and a mess because she wakes up late, and then it's everyone else's fault that she's not up early, even though we wake her up early. And she goes, "Hey, my phone didn't charge. What'd you do?" And I go, "I plugged it in." She goes, "You're an idiot. You plugged it in, but it wasn't plugged into the wall." And then just, base, not quite crying, but damn near to tears, getting angry, yelling at me. "Why did you do this? This day's off to a terrible start. Now I'm going to be late to the bus, and it's all your fault." Which, technically, it is my fault. So Dad's not off to a good start today. And this will be something with her that's going to linger throughout the day. So I've already been punished and already been yelled at early in the morning. Now I'm just wondering what my punishment should be for not plugging in the teenage daughter's phone in time or properly. I kind of wanted to say to her, "F you. Why don't you get off of your ass and go downstairs and plug it in? Maybe you do it right. Rather than, don't trust me. I'm not trustworthy on that kind of stuff." All right, so I'm already in trouble there with the teenage daughter. All right, what do we know of the latest with the Seahawks offensive coordinator search? Everybody is waiting to see what the Seahawks do with their new OC. Still nothing yet. They've had, 3 people come in for a second interview. Last week when we talked to Garafolo, he had mentioned that Klint Kubiak was in the driver's seat for the job. There was no action, after that. So if Garafolo gets it wrong, we're going to hammer Garafolo on that one. "Hey, Mike, you said driver's seat, you son of a gun." But also getting a second interview was Fraley and then the whiz kid, old Ubinski. From the Vikings. Now, what do we know about Hank Fraley? Well, I don't know much other than he played offensive line in the NFL and he's been with the Lions forever. And Luke Wilson has given his seal of approval there for Hank Fraley. I love the fact that he's an offensive line coach. I love the fact that he'd bring a toughness, I think, to the Seahawks team. I'm not in love with the idea. I thought about it a lot yesterday. We talked about it with Rob Staten on the Rob Staten podcast. Hello, Puck. And we reacted to the report from Albert Breer, where Breer was saying, hey, the Seahawks may go with a dual role, where they hire Fraley to be the offensive coordinator. He then is, of course, the offensive line coach, run game coordinator, and then they hire a passing game coordinator, as Breer pointed out, and I think it was Scott Turner from Vegas. Now, there certainly is a precedent for it. I mean, the best teams under Carroll, that was the operation, right? So it has worked. So maybe I shouldn't be skeptical about it. But Tom Cable was the run game coordinator and, of course, ran the offensive line. And then Darrell Bevel was the passing game coordinator and coordinator. I'll be honest with you, still to this day, it has always kind of been a mystery who was calling the plays. There was a collaboration, but, when it came push to shove and all that kind of stuff, who was actually making the call? I don't know. I think that's the only area where it comes into play, at least for me, is that it can have a little bit of an issue of having kind of dual coordinators. Who gets the say, right? I think it brings in too much. Not to say it can't work, and maybe it would work, and maybe ultimately that is the right call. But that would be the only kind of red flag I would see. It's just, you're getting two individuals in there that maybe see things a little bit differently. Unless you say, hey, Fraley is the guy. He gets to make the last call, and he is the coordinator, so he's going to call the plays. Never's called plays before in the NFL. I don't know if that's important to some people. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. He'd be a replacing guy who never called plays in the NFL, and that was a criticism for some people. I think for some in the Seahawks fan base and media was that he never called plays in the NFL. Well, if you'd replace him with a guy who's also not called plays in the NFL. Kubiak has. Ubinski has never called plays. So I would just say if that's a sticking point for you, that you need a coordinator who has called plays in the NFL, well, then you don't want to hire Grant Ubinski and you don't want to hire Hank Fraley because they don't have the experience doing it. Klint Kubiak has had experience. He's been okay. He's a familiar name. He's an NFL name that's been in the NFL circles forever. So, yeah, I get it. I get why he'd be attractive. They don't seem to be in a rush to want to hire a new offensive coordinator, do they? They're taking their due diligence. Maybe with the Lions, maybe they thought they'd have to wait forever for the Lions, and maybe forever with Hank Fraley, and thought, well, we don't want to really wait until after the Super Bowl, so we don't think maybe we'll have a shot at him. Maybe they got some back channel information that maybe he wasn't interested. But now that they were eliminated, now they can go out and interview him and have done a second interview. It was interesting to see, Ben Johnson. I think there was a report coming from the Chicago Tribune that it doesn't appear that Ben Johnson's going to take Fraley to Chicago. That, at least the little snippet that I saw from the Tribune was maybe it wasn't Johnson's MO to want to raid Dan Campbell's staff. All right. Well, if he doesn't want to do that, and I don't know if there's been any indication from Detroit, from the press out there, that Fraley would be the guy to call plays in Detroit. It would seem like a natural fit there for Hank Fraley if he didn't follow Johnson to Chicago, that he would just turn around and be the offensive coordinator there with the Bears. Or would he be the offensive coordinator with the Jets? Now, Aaron Glenn, and the reports coming out of New York, as Glenn is the new head coach of the Jets, and we'll find out with Garafolo today, would he be a candidate there? He hasn't been listed on any of the candidates for offensive coordinator position, so I don't know. Maybe Aaron Glenn is taking the similar approach that Johnson is taking, that he doesn't want to raid Campbell's staff. Maybe Dan Campbell just said, hey, I'm going to support you guys to go be head coaches and go out and get a job. Do me a favor. Just don't raid our staff. Yeah, that could have been like some type of handshake agreement to say, hey, just don't do it. I don't think that would be unheard of. And so we'll wait and see what they do there on that offensive coordinator search. We'll talk to Garafolo coming up in about 10 minutes or less than 10 minutes from now. And then, of course, Michael-Shawn Dugar joining us a little bit later in the program. All right, something we talked about with Danny Kelly on Tuesday's show. And I'm curious how many people feel on this one, because we got the championship games coming up this weekend. Bills-Chiefs is going to be a great one. It's a great storyline just because of the Bills' success against the Chiefs in the regular season, Josh Allen's success, and then they get in the postseason and they can't knock them off. Just two totally different games and two totally different scenarios when it comes to those two teams. And, I thought last week was the first time when the Chiefs were playing against the Ravens where I think there's been a lot of Chiefs fatigue. And there's been a lot of outcry about the penalties that Mahomes doesn't get or the team doesn't get. I thought it really got to a head last week, especially with Troy Aikman being so critical of Mahomes specifically and the Chiefs. That Danny Kelly and I from The Ringer were talking about, have we just reached a point now that you're just fatigued with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Point on that exact play where Patrick Mahomes sort of like slowed down as he was going out of bounds and then flopped into the sideline trying to draw a foul. And everyone's like, okay. I think, the old Jerry Seinfeld meme where he gets up in the theater and he goes,
that's
okay.
It.
Like, I think that was like the moment where everyone was like, okay, I'm fucking tired of this.
I'm with you on that. So are people. So the question is, how many people out there, now if you're a Chiefs fan, you're not. How many people out there are just tired of the Chiefs? How many people have Chiefs fatigue? You have Chiefs fatigue right now. And it's interesting for me because I think what the Chiefs have done is just remarkable. In this day and age of the NFL, where you're not supposed to have this, right? You're not supposed to have a dynasty because of how the league is set up. You're supposed to have parity. And so what they have done is something we've seen it before because we've seen it at the Patriots, but you rarely see in this sport. And I don't think there's anyone on the team that necessarily feels unlikable to me. I don't know. I mean, Mahomes doesn't come across as unlikable. The coach doesn't. I think the coach just seems like the best coach, like the number one coach in the NFL that you want to hang out with. I think Kelsey is fun. I just think they're a fun football team. Just like, and we made the comparison to the Warriors, and you saw the same thing with the Warriors in the NBA. They're winning all the time, and even people got tired of their act. Now, they had a villain on their team, a true villain in Draymond Green, so it kind of made it a little bit more, it made it easier for people to hate them, to sports hate them. Not so much Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, but for the Chiefs, I don't know, they don't really feel like they have the villain. Now, in sports, you like the rise of a team or a player, but when they get to that certain point, you want to see them knocked off. So I do think there's going to be a good portion of the fans this week that are going to be pulling for the Bills. Now, I want to see the Bills win, not because necessarily I have Chiefs fatigue. It's not about that. I have an immense soft spot, I think, for Bills fans. I really do. And just what that organization has had to go through of so much losing, especially in the Super Bowl. Now, and I said that Danny and I talked about this. If they beat the Chiefs, they better win the Super Bowl. Because if I can look at a crystal ball and say, okay, they win, but they get to the Super Bowl and they lose again, then I don't want them to beat the Chiefs. Because I don't want to see the Bills have to go through this one more time. I want to see the Bills get to the Super Bowl and win the whole damn thing. Please. Do not get into a situation where they get in one more time and then don't win. But I don't know. I think a lot of people have fatigue. Just looking at the chat right now, Corey, the State Farm commercial fatigue. Every other commercial is a chief player or coach. I get it. But I would say this. Aren't those commercials funny? They are. They're funny, aren't they? I have a good laugh at it. But I think anyone can get tired of it if you see it all the time. Chiefs are insufferable, says exalted Seahawks fan. Goodell is clearly the refs on their side. I don't think overall as a team, I think that's blown out of proportion. But again, that's once that kind of genie's out of the bottle of that narrative, it's hard to put it back in. And it's hard to argue when you watched it last week. I think the officials do treat Mahomes differently, for sure. But they have treated a lot of quarterbacks differently over the years. But I do think they treat Patrick Mahomes differently. And I do think, there's a little bit of, I think last week was probably the first time I've kind of been annoyed at Patrick Mahomes. Like when he slowed down going out of bounds and then tried to get the personal foul penalty knocked on after what he did in the flop. Yeah. Okay. That was over the line. And it's something that the league during the offseason is going to have to address. They're going to have to address that whole issue with the quarterbacks, because they got to figure it out when they slide. Like, what's the rule? Because these quarterbacks now are just taking advantage of it. What did you say? What do you say? Yeah. Some heat, you're right. Let's be honest, Puck, as he writes in the chat. You have an immense amount of money on the Bills. Well, yeah. Okay, I do. Is that clouding my judgment on the Bills? Probably to a degree. Yeah, I'm going to put some money on the Bills. You damn right I'm going to put money on the Bills. I want to see the Bills bring it home this year. And I want to see the Bills bring it home there against the Chiefs. NFC, I really don't care. I honestly don't. Commanders would be a good story. Eagles, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of out on the Eagles, even though I've got buddies that are Eagles fans. I'm kind of out on the Eagles a little bit. Commanders would be interesting. They get to the Super Bowl, and out here it would be again, he wouldn't have gotten to the Super Bowl out here, but the storyline will be if the Commanders go, you're going to see stories written about and people talk about, God, did the Seahawks what could have been if they would have hired Dan Quinn. But again, I mean, Dan Quinn is one win away from the Super Bowl because Dan Quinn's a good coach, but also because, I mean, come on, he had the quarterback and was able to have a generational quarterback and a rookie quarterback making no money, who's had an outstanding season, and he would not have had that here with Seattle, for sure. All right, we talked about this with Divish yesterday, and of course, Ichiro's doing a press conference right now, the Hall of Fame press conference, and he said that he wants to sit down and have some whiskey with the one person that didn't vote for him for the Hall of Fame. And Divish and I were joking yesterday because Divish, he did not take a picture of his ballot and send it in to Mr. Tibbs. What if Divish was the guy?
Take a picture of it like I normally do to send it to Mr. Tibbs and everything. I didn't take a picture of it. And then like I'm sitting there and I was so kind of stressed about voting for Felix and thinking about it. And
sure.
I'm going to write the column, so that what if I just forgot to check his name? Like what if I'm the guy, but it's really like I just forgot because I was doing this, and this, and then my raging ADD,
I guarantee I'm putting him down. I know I'm going to put him down.
Did I take my Adderall? Did I do this right? But I don't have a picture of it.
God, what if that's the case for the person who left him off, that he just forgot? He's like, I know Ichiro's going to be on there, but let me get these other guys and then I'll send it. And then he forgets.
Yeah. And I mean, that's your biggest fear. And so I'm like, with my luck, it'll probably be me. And then, my mom's home nation will be coming after me.
God, that would just be terrible. There's just part of me. And as I said it yesterday to Divish, that part of me, because of who Ryan is, I would love for Ryan to be the one guy that accidentally left Ichiro off his Hall of Fame ballot. God, that would be glorious. All right, time to talk some more NFL, national NFL storylines. We do it every single week, every Thursday, with the number one newsman in all of the land. If he still were alive, Edward R. Murrow would call him the Edward R. Murrow of NFL reporting. The Mike Garafolo Show, brought to you by Hartley & Hartley Insurance, your trusted family-owned insurance experts in the Puget Sound area since 1978. Also, Zogs on Fox Island, perfect spot to grab a cold beer, hang out with friends, catch the game. Check out Zogs on Facebook and Instagram for their fall hours and event times. All right, we're going to talk about the latest OC search for the Seahawks. Hank Fraley, Brian Schottenheimer going to Dallas, Pete Carroll back in the NFC West. We're going to get to that. We'll get to a championship preview, and we're going to get to the finalists for the NFL awards that were announced. And Mike Garafolo is with us right now. You always put me into panic when I don't hear from you in the morning. Every week. It puts me in a panic, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Good to hear from you, Puck.
Though. You're always here, and I know it, and I know you always will be, but it's just that moment. There's always it's like Goodwill Hunting. There's that moment. I'm gonna come to the door and you're not there.
That was a good ending.
It was a great ending.
No spoilers.
I think, but I would assume most people have seen it by now. I would hope, right?
Most people, yeah. Most people like apples.
Yeah. All right. What's the latest? What do we know? Are we down to 3? Is it Kubiak, Fraley, and then the wonder kid Ubinski?
Could be some others in there.
Ooh, well, do tell, Mike Garafolo.
I'm just saying there could be. There is. He's gonna probably through the weekend. It sounds like. Sounds like Mike McDonald is very thorough with this search, which is good because he wasn't last year. And well, it's not to say that he wasn't last year, but it was sort of a pairing for him. We talked about it. I'm gonna have to go back there, but this is like, who's my guy? Who's my guy? Meeting with them over Zoom, bringing them all in, talking to them face to face. So we'll see. Yeah, seems like maybe early next week you'll have a call, or maybe over the weekend. We'll see.
Okay, could Chip Kelly be on their radar?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I asked about that and was pretty sure no. Was told no this time around.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
If you
but I've asked so many in different teams and this and that, and this interview scheduled for this guy. Wasn't that already out there? No, it's not. Or maybe that's just, a lot of this stuff's getting muddled.
last week when we spoke, we talked about Kubiak being in the driver's seat. Is he still there, or is he no longer in the driver's seat? Is he in the back of the station wagon?
He is. No, he's in the mix. I mean, they seem to have good interactions with him, and they've seemed to have, got good feedback on him, and they like the system, and they like what he was able to do with a healthy Chiefs offense or Saints offense, which did not last very long this year. So, driver's seat or whatnot. I mean, he was the first guy up. And we weren't sure that they were going to do a full second round, but looks like they did a full second round here. So, we'll see. I'd still put them up there with the favorites for sure. Okay,
I want to just revisit. Do you think? I mean, listen, I'm going to ask you a timetable, and then I'm not trying to hold you to it, but you think this thing wraps up by next week?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think by next week for sure.
Early portion of the week.
I would say early portion of the week. I don't see why it would go any further unless they're waiting for somebody still left in the playoffs. But seemed like they've got everybody on their radar that they've spoken to on this one. So, yeah, we'll see.
What's the deal with Fraley? Why would he not go? Why would Johnson not take him to Chicago?
Why would Johnson not take him to Chicago? I don't know. I'm not going inside Ben Johnson's mind, but. I don't know. I mean, the fact that the Lions let him interview for the Seahawks job, which I don't know if actually you can deny that one. But yeah, I mean, I think Ben's got his own guys in mind for that job. I don't know if Hank Fraley is one of them. But Ben Johnson was asked yesterday. I thought this was funny. I was asked at his press conference if he plans on calling plays, and he said yes. That's like asking, Tiger if he plans on hitting driver this round. Yes, he's going to do that. There's no doubt about it.
Is Fraley a candidate to be the OC with Detroit?
I have not heard that. I have not heard that specifically. I think Dan Campbell is looking for somebody with the imagination of Ben Johnson and what he was able to do. Fraley's, his role here, all this is the offensive line guys, the running game. And how does this marry to what you're doing in the passing game? But you don't see those guys mentioned as complete outside the box. We're running all the stuff that Ben Johnson was running. I know Dan Campbell wants to see if he can sort of replicate that or get somebody with some fresh ideas in that regard. They're hard to come by, which is why Ben Johnson was such a hot candidate.
One of your colleagues, Albert, well, not colleague at the NFL Network, but just a colleague in the NFL world, Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated. Are you over your beef with Breer now? Or is that
I never beef with Breer.
I'm just joking. I'm just making shit up.
You may hit a dart. You keep doing that with the people in the media.
That's like what I want to do. All right, so he talked about, hey, they'd be open to a split role. Now, this wouldn't be anything unique to Seattle. They did this for a long time with Tom Cable being the offensive line coach and then the run game coordinator. Then Darrell Bevell was the passing game coordinator and then the de facto offensive OC for the team. Do you see the Seahawks being open to that, of just bringing him in and then it's kind of a split role?
I don't see it as a split role. I mean, in the end, somebody's your offensive coordinator, and somebody is going to be the guy that's calling the plays. And you got a lot of run game coordinators these days, and pass game coordinators, and sometimes both underneath an offensive coordinator. A lot of times, the title that you're given. I mean, look. Jeff Stoutland in Philly, the offensive line coach, is a huge part of what they're doing in the run game, right? You can give him the run game coordinator title. You cannot give it, like, the offensive line is always, that guy's always going to be. So yeah, I mean, it'll be some kind of that role. But I don't look at it as a 50-50 type split. I think in the end, they're going to have themselves an offensive coordinator with potentially somebody there as a strong presence in the run game, if it's the way that they're going with Fraley, like we're talking about here.
All right, tell Seattle fans out here, Mike, all right, please, why is Brian Schottenheimer going to be the new head coach of the Cowboys?
Dak Prescott?
Okay.
If that's what winds up happening, it looks like we're potentially close there. Dak Prescott. I would say Dak Prescott, Jason Witten. Those are the two reasons. Dak Prescott wanting continuity, having a good relationship with Brian Schottenheimer, and also Jerry Jones interested in having Jason Witten on the coaching staff. And I don't know that all candidates, I know for sure all candidates are not necessarily comfortable with that, because that in the end he wants that guy to be the head coach. And if you're coming in and taking the job, it's like, why have that over my shoulder immediately? And There was talk of a shorter term deal with Mike McCarthy, which I believe was the bridge between the now and the future with Jason Witten. And McCarthy, to his credit, said, I've earned more than that. And so that's why they never really got into the details of the contract extension. So Brian Schottenheimer hasn't been on the head coaching hot ranks for quite some time now. I mean, we're talking 14, 15 years. And this might be his last shot. So for him, okay, well, yeah, even if it's a transitional period, might as well take my crack here, especially with a good organization. I call it a good job. I mean, I know a lot of folks are looking at it right now saying, yeah, you know what? I think I'd rather go elsewhere. But those are the folks with some skins on the wall. And those are the folks with some leverage to play. Brian Schottenheimer doesn't have that right now.
Okay, so if he just wants Witten to take over, because that Jerry Jones just wants Witten to be the coach at some point, why doesn't he just hire him now?
Because Jeff Saturday got hired. I mean, Saturday had high school coaching experience like Witten did.
Is that what he's doing now? Is he coaching high school football?
Yes. Yeah. So that didn't go well.
Wait, he didn't do well at the high school ranks?
Who? Witten? No, Witten did very well.
Oh, okay. You're talking about Saturday.
The Saturday as the coach of the Colts did not go. Now that was middle of the season interim type stuff. That was next level bat crap crazy. This would be similar though. I mean, to take a guy who doesn't have any coaching experience above that level and throw him into an NFL head coaching job. He didn't float when he did that with Monday Night Football either. So,
it's just funny. It's just funny that when, out here, especially in Seattle, when his name has been thrown around to the head coaching job with the Cowboys, there's no one can understand it. People are like, how? How? God, his name was even mentioned by some fans out here to return as offensive coordinator. I'm like, he was fired. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
He's been fired everywhere, but I don't know. I mean,
he son of a coach. I tell you this all the time. What a guy does as a coordinator doesn't necessarily indicate what he's going to be as a head coach.
That's fair.
I think you're seeing some folks that have been hired last year into this year, and we're gonna see the results here for some of these guys going forward here. So, is it? They know him better than me. They're in the building with him every single day.
Right.
He was a hot head coaching candidate at one point. We'll see. I just how do you fire a guy who won 12 games 3 years straight and then just promote a guy who's on nobody else's radar?
And Brian Schottenheimer, nobody else is bringing in
tough sell
for an interview. Pete Carroll. There's been a report out there that the Niners could look at him to bring him in as a DC. That would be, I'm going to be honest with you, that'd be so phenomenal if he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers and plays the Seahawks twice a year.
Yeah.
Sign me up now for this. I'm all in.
I don't. Pete Carroll's got to be a head coach or nothing at this point, right? Why would you do that? Who reported that, by the way?
Tim Kawakami.
Tim Kawakami. Yeah. I mean, Tim's plugged in, so.
Yeah. Tim's been covering that Bay Area, covering the 49ers for years.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Mike. You and I, we love football. We love sports. We know what we're in. We're in the entertainment business. This would be
disgusting.
This would be
has come up inside the headquarters.
What's that?
No, he said that's the way it's come up inside the building.
Come on. Make it happen. Come on, Shanahan.
Just for the entertainment value. Yeah.
Oh.
But he hasn't been in that role. Like, you're just gonna that's a guy gets out of that role. Jason Garrett was an offensive coordinator, did a great job. Cowboys head coach for 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it was. Giants go, well, we're gonna make him when you're out of that role for so long, it's just so hard to go back into that role.
I want him on there with the red shirt on or the Cardinal shirt on, and he's over there smacking his gum with his Monarchs, throwing footballs down at
Kyle
Lumen.
Shanahan. If you're Kyle, why would you want that?
Just to have that, he's got more energy than Kyle does.
I don't doubt that. But why would you want that? Why would you want that?
Win forever. They change everything inside the building. They're bringing a basketball hoop into the meetings. Oh, man.
Twice a year would make for good fodder.
Oh, God, it'd be great. What about the Raiders job? Because he's going to be linked to the Raiders job. Obviously, the Bears job is out because of Ben Johnson, but any legs still for him possibly joining the Raiders?
Which is fascinating to me because Tom Brady comes in and Tom Brady's going to take his big swing at Ben Johnson, and Ben decides to go elsewhere, right? And you're Mark Davis, and you have, I mean, Mark Davis is almost becoming a spectator at his own team here, right? Like you've got Tom Brady hiring his buddy as general manager. And he's the reason that they blew out the head coach and the GM when there was a support for both of those guys inside the building. And it's like minority owner in name only.
He's running the ship.
I keep saying the minority owner continues to have a major influence on the Las Vegas Raiders right now. It is incredible. And it's not just him. I mean, it's the new ownership group as well. And you know, I thought Antonio Pierce for a minute was going to survive. And leading up to that, I didn't. I mean, it was the minute of nothing happened on Monday and they were into Tuesday. I'm like, oh, he's gonna make it. You know. But you take a step back and you go, you're Tom Brady, you're this new ownership group. You're gonna do something. You're gonna make a move. And in the end, they decided to make the move.
What's he hired the assistant GM from Tampa? He was there right when Brady was there.
Yeah.
The hiring of him indicates what? Do they go down a Tampa Bay tree? I mean, what insight do you get from him hiring the gentleman from Tampa Bay to be the new GM in terms of what they want to do for a head coach?
In terms of what they want to do for a head coach?
Yeah. Does that give you like
there's no
linking?
real pairing. I mean, Liam Cohen would have been the pairing if you're pairing him with John Spytek. I mean, Spytek knows other people around. I've known John for quite some time. He's a smart guy. He's a sharp guy. He does a nice job. But no, I think it's now they're going to do now it's almost like they're doing a full search. Before it was Ben Johnson or bust. Now it's like we've got to go through the full search here. So, yeah, we'll see if the guys that are still in the postseason here. Steve Spagnuolo interviewed there, and I know Brady thinks extremely highly of Spags. There hasn't been a whole lot of chatter that they're waiting for him at this point. So, let's see if this search plays out over the next week, because now these guys that are in the conference championship can interview next week. In between, if they've already interviewed with these teams, they can interview between then and the Super Bowl if they're still in it.
Hey, a fun little connection. We talked about this on yesterday's show. If Carroll got hired with the Raiders, you think he would call his good buddy John Schneider and be like, "Hey, you want to get out of Geno? How about you trade him to us? We don't have an option at quarterback."
Yeah,
that'd be kind of an interesting reunion. Pete and Geno back together.
And
he
then,
loves Geno.
And then what do the Seahawks do? I mean, that's everybody's in quarterback purgatory here, right?
I don't know what they do. Nothing. They play the next season, Mike, without a quarterback. First team in NFL history.
Not the first team. I mean, they didn't have the forward pass at one point. So
they go back to the wing tee. You know, the wing tee I think would always thrive.
We ran the wing tee in high school. We had passing plays.
Okay, how'd you do with the wing tee? Pretty good, I bet.
No, we sucked. I was playing offensive line. How do you think we did?
You were offensive line?
Yeah.
At what, like $160?
No, well, I'm like 175 now.
Okay.
I was 215 in high school. I mean, I tried to bulk up, and
what kind of lifting and steroid program were you on?
We were taking creatine back then, which is creatine still allowed? It had just popped when we were taking it, and the results were like, whoa, okay.
I think this would come to a shock to you. I'm not a creatine expert.
Yeah, nor am I. I don't do supplements anymore or anything like that. I used to take a pre-workout thing that my wife's nutritionist recommended for me, a little combination, and I don't know if it ever really worked. I don't take it now, and I think I have my better work, so I think it's all baloney. But the creatine was like, I'm benching 170, take the creatine next week, 185. I was like, okay, that's I
need some old high school video of you pulling on that wing tee. God, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. They make you pull, and they'd be like, duck the shoulder when you're coming around. And it's just like,
I bet you were
just run around. Then I watch these guys in the NFL. Nobody's ducking their shoulder, but like when you come around the corner, try to make a tight turn and duck your. I'm like, nobody's doing that. These guys are upright. Here he is. Boom. They also, my freshman year, they wanted us to block like the old plastic guys, like with the wing, and you block.
Like the chicken wing out there.
That's how they block in the NFL. Why are we doing this? They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Why would we not do what they're doing?
It's the wing tee. It's a wing tee blocking schemes. Who do you think's had more success in his first year? Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Do you like both hires also for both those organizations? Oh, you don't. Which one don't you like?
We'll see, man.
You don't like Glenn to New York.
I didn't say that.
You don't like Johnson with the Bears.
I didn't say that either.
Oh,
I didn't say that either. We don't know. We don't know. That's why I'm like, what give you this, and all I do is give you a clip to throw back at my face in 2 years. That's all I do.
Don't do that. I don't throw anything back in your face.
I know.
I don't say like, "Oh, gotcha. You said this. You were wrong."
Yeah. No. The Glenn. I don't know how the Glenn hire is gonna. I have no idea. That could be great, could be bad. I don't know.
It's also kind of based on like the ownership, right? I mean, because they all have to work together, and if the ownership's dysfunctional, it doesn't matter who you hire.
And who's the GM too? We're still waiting to see what.
Oh, they don't even have a GM, do they?
They have not hired a GM yet. No,
they already hired the coach.
They're bringing
I
in
didn't even know.
They're bringing in 2 more people today. We thought they were settling on Lance Newmark, who has a connection with Aaron Glenn from their time in Detroit together. Newmark now with the Commanders, but that was not done yesterday as part of the package deal, and they scheduled even more interviews. So we'll see. I mean, I think they're coming down the home stretch there.
But that is dysfunctional, I think. I mean, I maybe it's done before, but well, don't you let your GM make the hire? Isn't he the one who's supposed to make it?
They're both, it depends. Do they both report to the owner? Do they one report? I mean, in this case, you've got to figure Aaron Glenn reports to Woody Johnson and the GM as well, because otherwise the hire would be in place, like you're talking about. It depends on
does Woody get his title back now that the big man's in charge now? Does he go back to London or England?
No, they already picked somebody else.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Too bad for Woody. It was a good role for him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get something else, but all indications are he's going to be,
Do we still have to call him? What was his title that he made people call him?
Ambassador.
Do they still have to do it? Walking around the facility?
I will let you know when they have their next press conference, because the last one they had, they said Ambassador Johnson will be available at 11 a.m. So let's see how they refer to him on this one.
If you were an ambassador to any country, what would it be? What would your choice be?
Aruba. Just go live there. Nothing going on. Not since the Natalie Holloway thing, which is great. Well, no, that's not great. But what was great is we started going there in the years after that, and they were making it clear this is a safe island that is extremely rare, and their tourism has always been, and they're the friendliest people, and tourism has always been a big part of what they do. And they were really ratcheting it up in the years after because they were worried that people weren't going to go there because of the incident there. And so it's just, they call it one happy island. It really is. It really is. Now, I don't know if I could live there every time I go there, I'm there for a week or whatever. And we haven't gone in a couple of years.
Ambassador Garafolo.
Could Aruba. Did we have an ambassador to Aruba? I don't even know.
I don't know, but we could make you. That's you're going to be your new role when you leave the NFL Network.
The UK is a good one though, because it's the relations are great. It's not a vital role. Woody, it's not like he was orchestrating any great deals between the countries or putting out fires between the two countries. And great golf,
wonderful golf,
good libations.
Yeah. All of it.
It's a good country. Is UK a country? It's a kingdom. It's not a.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the weather. I'm going someplace where it's warm. Your Aruba choice is
but
fabulous.
Again, would you want that the whole at some point?
Yes, you would. You right now, is it snowing there or where you're at? Is it miserable? Yeah. You'd want to be in Aruba.
I don't know.
Year round.
I think because the people there want to go on vacation to New York, and we're like, "Are you crazy?" And I go, "Yeah, trust me, you'd get tired of this all the time." Okay.
I don't know. Here's my theory on that one, because I want to move to San Diego. And people, well, you get tired of the sunshine all the time. Let me just workshop that for a couple of years, and let's just see if I can get tired of it. Hey, what did I?
Well, hold on. Remember Craig Kilborn when he hosted the Late Show?
I love Craig Kilborn.
And I always used to love that he introduced himself every night.
Yes.
But he did the San Diego weatherman. Let's check the San Diego weatherman. Today's weather, nice.
Perfect. What happened to him? He dropped off the face of the earth.
The Daily Show. Well, he was Daily Show, then Late Show, right? And then
they tried ESPN, Sports Center, Daily Show.
Sports Center, then Daily Show, then Late Show.
Right.
And then he left that to go.
He did some Hollywood stuff. He did some acting.
And that didn't take off. And he actually did have a show that they syndicated in the afternoons for a brief period 5-6 years ago, I want to say. And I was trying to watch it, and it was on at weird times, and it didn't have the same punch to it. So, but he was great on. I loved him on the Daily Show. I loved him on the Late Show. The
great.
Daily Show then took a turn and became something completely different.
It was not the same show when he hosted it.
Right.
Hey, what are they going to do about, the Mahomes thing this last week? The sliding going down. We've talked about this a bunch. When he went out of bounds and then slowed down, got shoved, and then flopped like he was an NBA player. The leagues I would assume the league tries to do something in the offseason to change the rule, do something about the quarterbacks and them sliding and going out of bounds.
It'll be a point of conversation amongst the competition committee, which happens at the combine and then gets voted on at the league meetings the following month. So it'll be part of the conversation there. And I listen, he's not innocent. He's professing innocence. He's not innocent. And you do that. And it's because you're taking the health and safety and you're weaponizing it. You're using it as an advantage for yourself. And it's not cool. Now he didn't do anything in those hits to the head that were not hits to the head. That's not his fault. That's just the official. And I was where was I when that game was going on? I forget, but we're talking to other media members. I was like, don't call what you think you saw. Call what you see. Well, it looked like, because you didn't see it. You didn't see it. And if anybody complains, I couldn't see it from this angle. I couldn't see it. It looked like it, but I'm not sure. I couldn't see it until I could see it. So call what you see. Don't call what you think you see.
Do you believe in the narrative and the theory from people that the league is protecting him?
No, I don't.
Are you just saying that because you work for the league?
No, protecting him. No, I always, to me, coming into these final games, I'm like, Buffalo, Washington would be cool. Two teams we haven't seen in a long time.
Great.
Why wouldn't we want those teams in there? Now you get a team sort of. I always think like if a Jaguars comes out of nowhere, like the league doesn't want that, right? They don't want.
They are a dumpster fire. Oh my God.
Forget that. I'm just saying it's a small market team. It doesn't have a lot of history. When the NHL gets into the Final Four and it's like, well, it could be Calgary and Columbus. Like they don't want that, right? They want Rangers, Blackhawks. They want
right.
I want Flyers, Blackhawks. I'll tell you, but that's the stuff that they want. I don't sit there like we got to have Kansas City in the Super Bowl again. Like, I don't know. I think they would want one of these. Wouldn't you want Baltimore in there? Wouldn't you want a little change, a little fresh blood there?
I don't have Chiefs fatigue. I understand how other people have it. I don't find them unlikable. I love what they're doing, and I just respect and I think sit back as a sports fan in awe of what they're doing. In the salary cap, league and how they want parity and they just keep winning and winning and winning. All right, we're going to chat next week at this time, and we'll be previewing what? What do you think? Give me your predictions.
Hold on.
We not predicting? Oh, we got something going on?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be at the Senior Bowl. I'm going to be flying back that day. Hold on, let's see what time I land.
We'll figure something out. But
let's do it now. Who cares? The people want to hear. The people want to know.
Who's going to play in the Super Bowl? Who do you think? Predict the
Buffalo and Washington.
That's what you think, huh?
Calling two upsets. Buffalo and Washington.
Rematch of, I can't remember what the Super Bowl was. But
yeah, it was 91, I think. 91.
The second one in which they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, it was Giants, then Washington, Dallas. They lost, yeah. I land at 2:13 Eastern time, so I'm gonna be in the air at 1:20, so we'll have to finesse. We'll
figure something out. Mark Rippon, one-time fighting, scrapping Washington State Cougar, quarterback legend, MVP.
Was that game? I remember all the other games. I remember the Cowboys game. The Bills were up early. Cowboys just completely blew their doors off. The second one didn't seem like it was really a game for a while. I was a little rusty on that one. I remember the Giants one was a close one. Was the Washington one close? I don't remember that game at all.
I'm not going to look it up. Memory tells me it was close in the beginning, and then Washington pulled away, and Rippon had a crazy game. And I can remember, wasn't it played in the Metrodome in Minneapolis?
Yes, it was. All right, so it was a scoreless first quarter.
Okay.
Followed by a 17-0 Washington second quarter. Followed by a touchdown. It was 24-0, 24-3, 24-10. It was never close after the first quarter. Chip Low-Miller's 34-yard field goal started the scoring, followed by Ernest Biner and Gerald Riggs.
Gerald Riggs. Oh, God, I love Gerald Riggs.
Yeah.
He was the best. He was so good.
They had a Riggs and a Riggins. That team. But I do remember because Peter Schrager, they rolled the highlight of Ernest Biner's touchdown, and it was about how he had this horrible moment in the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, years before, and then had a little bit of glory in this. So I sort of started to come back. So yeah, I'm going for a rematch of Super Bowl 26.
Okay. All right. Have fun at the Senior Bowl next week.
You got it, dude.
All right.
Be
See you,
well.
Mike. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, the Mike Garafolo Show in the books. Again, brought to you by Hartley and Hartley Insurance. Zogs on Fox Island. The show will be up on YouTube. When you're there, please subscribe to the channel. Also on the audio podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Just search Puck Sports. And when you're there, please rate and leave a review. Big thanks to Mike for jumping on. All right. Now we transition over to the Seahawks, and joining us for his weekly visit, the Michael-Shawn Dugar Show from The Athletic. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Dugar, co-host of the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast. And he joins us right now. We're going to talk about the splitting of the OC roles. We'll get the update if there's any news on the offensive coordinator search, Woolen's future. Something that Mike and Chris Kidd on their Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast talked about was what could the Seahawks learn from watching the Rams. And then Mike also wrote a story up on the review of the 2024 draft class. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Today's life, or this most recent life thing I'm dealing with is a joint filing of taxes because I got married last year. So I have to figure out how that works.
So that's
had to do
fun.
It before.
That's always a fun activity.
Yeah, so we'll see. And this is my daughter's 18 months, so the kid part too factors into that. So taxes are a whole different bag this year for me. So
this is why you have kids. Crossed. Get some money back. It's a tax break.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I have heard good things. I am excited about that part of the process for sure.
All right, let's start here with this Seahawks OC search. Do you think it's going to be one of these three that they'll end up hiring that's had the second interviews, Kubiak, Ubinski, or Fraley?
Yeah, I think where there's smoke, there's fire. Don't think something's coming out of left field. It's kind of just not how this usually works. You look at all the hires we've seen with OCs, DCs, special teams coordinators, even the firings too. You just see there's so much smoke. There's so many leaks. There's so much, these guys really like this, or all these weirdly worded reports of like things are trending this way, or this is the leader here, or, I saw one tweet that was like, they're about to hire the Jets as long as all the contractual mesh points align or something like that. I'm like, what are we doing here? But when there's all that smoke, usually there's fire. I honestly think we're probably going to get it pretty soon here, I would imagine. Maybe they're waiting for one of the bigger fish, someone who doesn't get a head coaching job. Maybe someone like McCarthy would be a no-brainer for me. Knows John Schneider. Probably a no-brainer for John as well. Got the experience. You'd be able to just hand the offense to him, be like, hey, here's what I want you to do. Go knock that out, versus some of the young, inexperienced guys that they're also talking to. I think maybe that could be maybe an outlier, a wild card, or whatever you want to call it. But I do think, barring something like that, probably be one of the guys we've heard so much about in this game with all these agent leaks and everything. Where there's smoke, there tends to be fire.
Well, that's a guy I never even thought about, Mike McCarthy, until you just mentioned him. No, I just assumed he, head coach, somebody would hire him, or maybe he takes the year off and with his glorious personality does some TV and then gets back into coaching. But I don't know. Now that you bring it up, I wish I would have thought of it earlier. I would have asked Garafolo if he had heard anything about Mike McCarthy. But that's an interesting name, and you're right about the connection with John Schneider. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so much of this, and I think ESPN just had a deep dive into this, it's not just this merit-based, they put the job on LinkedIn and see who applies. It's agent talk, it's coach conventions. There's like 12 agents that rep every coach, so there's just so much of like, hey, give my guy a chance. Like, it's, like how you think a Grant Udinski gets on radars, it's probably because either in coaching circles, like just coaching clinics, nerd talk, group chats, or agent stuff, so much of it is just like, hey, I know this guy, or my agent reps him too, or I went to this clinic once and ran into this guy at the combine or whatever. It's not, they don't just trip and fall and stumble on the best candidate. There's so much work that goes in behind the scenes on how these guys end up meeting, whether it's hey, this is my guy's golf buddy, or I went to college with this dude. What Brady just hired the GM.
Right.
The GM that they just hired in the Raiders played football with Tom Brady, right? Like sometimes it's just that simple. Oh, you played with him at Michigan. All right. The Bucks roster is fine. Come on over. Sometimes the stuff is not as like qualification based as we like to think. It really is just hiring the homies or your homie's homie.
But that's life though, right?
No, it's not exclusive.
That's
to
how every business does it.
Yeah, no, to be clear, it's not that. You're right. It's not exclusive to football. That's how people hire cooks and valet people and plumbers and whoever. It's the homie's homie. It is a lot of just like who you're right. It's not just football that does that, but I do think sometimes we get caught up in like, oh, his offense was this, his defense was that. He's had this experience. No, sometimes it's just I golf with his nephew, so I'm gonna give him a shot. Sometimes it really just is that.
What do you think the idea that Albert Breer threw out, I know that you've talked about it a little bit, is this splitting of the rules. Maybe not so much splitting of the rules, but if you bring in Fraley as the, let's say, offense coordinator, then he's the run game coordinator, or maybe he's not the OC, but then he shares it with a passing game coordinator, and Breer threw out the name Scott Turner. I mean, the Seahawks have done that before, Mike. I mean, they did it with Cable and Darrell Bevel. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, Breer is far more plugged in on this in particular than I am, so I'm not like gonna battle with the contents of the report, but the wording was very funky. Like, what does splitting up the job mean? Because, like you said, if you just hire a guy to be the OC and he has a passing game coordinator with him, that is not splitting up the job. Damn near every team does that. They have an OC and a passing game coordinator. The Seahawks just did that. Jake Peets was the passing game coordinator, and they just had Ryan Grubb as the OC. The previous regime had Shane Waldron as the OC, Chad Morton as the running game coordinator, and I forget who the passing game coordinator was, but they had, I think it was Sanjay Lal, I think. But either way, they just had that setup. So I would like to know more about the specifics of the quote unquote splitting up the job, because that's what he wrote, Like, I'm not refuting it, but I would like more clarity on that, because there is a difference there between like having co-OCs, which is what that sounded like, versus just having a passing game coordinator come with.
Because that's what it came across to me as co-OCs.
Yeah, me too. Splitting up the job sounded like co-OC, and I'm here to tell you, Puck, that's a terrible idea.
I'm not a fan of it. I think it just gets, because I'm just trying to think back with Cable and Bevel. I remember always questioning like, well, who is actually calling the plays? I think there was always some like gray area. Was Bevel calling the passing plays, and then when Cable wanted to run, he would call the running plays? Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think not as much recall in real time, because I think I was like fresh out of college when they were really cooking. But like going back and talking to people, it feels very clear Bevel was calling the plays. Particularly if you go back to Super Bowl years, that was a lot of Bev, and talked to a lot of the offensive players. They'll give Bev credit for the scout on certain plays, particularly in those playoff runs, like the championship call to Curse that wins it, things like that. So Bev was like in charge, but I really think if they do the splitting up, like, hey, you guys are co-OCs, you guys do it together. That just, when I hear that, Puck, I hear like, particularly with Hank Fraley, I hear, oh, Hank, you're not fully qualified for the job, so we need to hire around your blind spots. Which, whether they intended to sound that way or not, that's how I heard it or read it or whatever. And that just sounds terrible. You should hire someone you think can do the job in total. Like, stop, right there, full stop. That's for most gigs, for what it's worth. Like, yeah, everyone's going to have some type of blind spot. For instance, Clint Hurt was a D-line coach. Right? So when they hired him, they also brought in Sean Desai, who worked with Fangio as well, and new DBs. And they brought in Carl Scott, who had worked with Mike Zimmer and Nick Saban, also new DBs, to kind of work with the blind spot, quote unquote, that Clint had from working with the front so much, So like it can happen. But I thought that also, looking back now, was an acknowledgement from Pete. Like, okay, you don't fully have the grasp on this, whether Pete wanted it to come across that way or not. That's how it felt. And I just you should just hire an OC you think can be an OC, not just like, oh, you can fix one thing, maybe, or like half of what our problem is. So if it's a legitimate split, I think, Seahawks, you're listening now, do not do that. If you hire Frank because you think he can be your OC. Full stop. If you think like he needs to have like someone coaching him on half the damn job, which is the pass game, that's a terrible idea. That's terrible, terrible, terrible. If it is legit, just he's our OC, full stop, and then also here will be our passing game coordinator, then yes, that's very normal, and go ahead and do that. But don't hire someone. Don't try to hire around you guys' blind spots. That screams that he's not fully qualified.
You said it early. You think probably next week. Don't want to go too far with the hiring. Maybe early next week. Garafolo just a little bit ago said, yeah, he kind of expects the same thing, that this is going to get wrapped up maybe this weekend or early next week, that they could have a new guy. And I guess we would assume it's going to be one of those three guys. I mean, last week at this time, according to Mike, it was, Kubiak was in the driver's seat for that role, but they certainly are taking their time to make the hire. He did say, not that he has been mentioned. I think we just threw him out there, but he said that Chip Kelly is not a candidate for the job. Just throwing, because we had brought it up a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago that, hey, would they look at Chip Kelly, just because the last time they did this, he did interview. He interviewed last year for the job, and he interviewed with Mike McDonald. So, but apparently not this time around there for the fighting Chipsters.
Oh man, that's a shame. I think Chip might he might do a good job with that. Not just because of the college stuff he's doing now, because he has a supreme talent advantage over there at Ohio State. Might be the best roster in college football. Got all this talent. So of course I expect you to score points, but I do just think if he's one of those people, I think there's so many examples we can think of. Josh McDaniels comes to mind. Rex Ryan on the defensive side comes to mind. Fangio on the defensive side, where it's like, if you just get to focus on that thing you're super good at, oh, you're nails. If I ask you to just be in charge, probably an issue. But if I ask you to just sit in your room and dial up blitzes or coverages or dial up screen passes or whatever as a OC, like there's certain guys who you can tell that's just their bag. Chip seems to be like that.
And he seems to, because he left to be a head coach of UCLA to go be an OC in college football, because he probably didn't want to deal with all the stuff that entails being a head coach now in college football.
In the same conference. He left in the same conference.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. I think, and Mike says that he might have an interest, that Garafolo said he might have an interest at one point being a head coach again in the NFL. But I think that's the thing. I think sometimes people find it, Mike, disrespectful. It's okay to be a number two. Not everyone's a number one. And and there's plenty of number twos, assistant coaches, coordinators, that they're great at that. They're great at that, and maybe they're not, to your point, not necessarily great to be head coaches. It's because it's a different beast.
I think Steve Spagnuolo might be a DC for the rest of his life, and if so, that's great. He might go down as one of the best ever, like ever. He's just nails every year, and going to Super Bowls and winning them. Like, if you don't get another shot to be a head coach, that's fine. I think Brian Flores, who probably will get another shot, is probably in that same boat, man. If he's just a kick-ass DC for the next 20 years, good for you, Brian. There's no shame in that. That's great. Not everyone is built to be the head coach, because there's a lot of politics that come with that have nothing to do with your football knowledge. And I think that's part of why Brian Flores is not a head coach, because he was not good at the politics side of being a head coach. So yeah.
What was it was like 2 weeks ago, or what was it? Fitzpatrick that came out.
I think so. On his podcast, he
was just like, "Do not hire him. He's terrible." I'm like, oh, geez.
I can't remember what he said specifically, but some guys are just not built for it, and that's fine. I think Robert Saleh might fall in that bucket too at some point, where you're just like, dude, you're just gonna kick ass as a DC for a long time, and that's okay. I think Chip, if he's just an OC forever, like if Kellen Moore gets poached in this cycle for some reason, and Chip goes back to Philly, work for Sirianni, I think the Eagles would kick ass for another 10 years on offense.
Hey, did you see the report, Tim Kawakami, who's been covering the Bay Area forever, 49ers forever, that inside the 49ers facility, kicking around the idea of chomping Pete? I mean, Mike, sign me up. I mean, I'd like to see him become a head coach again. Maybe it's with the Raiders. But for the entertainment value of him being a defensive coordinator with the 49ers and playing the Seahawks twice a year, phenomenal. Just all in.
They floated that last year too. Our guy Matt Barrows at The Athletic had him, Pete, on the short list of coordinator options after they fired I think it was Wilkes after the Super Bowl. Their play-by-play guy, I forget his name, but for the 49ers.
Greg Papa?
Yeah, Papa floated it, I think, on the Rich Eisen show last year after the Super Bowl. So that it's there, it's where there's smoke. Where there's smoke. I don't know if Pete would do it. I think I'd be a little bit more entertained with him just generally just coaching the Raiders. Because I think being back in the same division with Harbaugh, and having to go toe to toe with, think of the coaches in that division. If they hired Pete, you get Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll. that is tough. That's why I think the Raiders should go with someone like him or a veteran coach. I think if Ben Johnson would have took that job going against those guys in that division, that could have been a tough sledding early on, particularly with no quarterback. I think Pete's a little bit built better for that.
Well, Rob Staten floated this idea. I like it. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a great hypothetical that, hey, why if Carroll got the job with the Raiders, does he call his good friend John Schneider and said, hey, how about you trade me Geno Smith?
Woof. Oh, I got you one. You call Russ. Russ a free agent.
Oh, yeah.
Call Russ. Get Russ to Vegas.
Oh, I forgot about that. It's a reunion.
Take Russ to Vegas.
Brady,
Take Russ to Vegas. Call Tyler Lockett. Have him come down there too. If the Seahawks cut him. KJ Wright's in coaching now. You bring KJ Wright over there. Coach your linebackers. There's so many. He's aged out. Not aged out, but he's been coaching so long, and now his players are in it. Coaching now. Deshaun Said's a coach. Will Tufuaku's a coach. I got some other guys who are in coaching now.
What's Wagner's contract with Washington?
It's a 1 year. 1 year, I think. I'm pretty sure. I can double check.
The whole
that.
band is back together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would love it.
Could he get Browner out of jail?
I think Browner got released this year. I think
Browner's available.
I think he got released. Nico Thorpe's in coaching. Yeah, Bobby's on the 1 year with the Commanders. Hey, it could get fun over there in the desert if Pete takes that.
Hey, how old is Marshawn now? Do you think Marshawn would be like, I'll suit it up one more time?
I think Marshawn lives in Vegas. I think he lives in Vegas. I think his
Running
house is in multiple places. Running backs, just put him on the staff. I don't think he needs a title. Just say Marshawn works here. That's it. Because he doesn't need an outline, a guideline, a job description. Just say we hired Marshawn Lynch. Don't worry about what he does. He just does Marshawn stuff, which is kind of what Tater was on all those staffs too. It's like Tater works here. Who cares what Tater does? He just works
hold on. But Tater for people who don't know, Tater, what was his real name?
Carl Smith.
Carl Smith was the quarterback's coach, old hippie guy. You Seahawks fans, you might have seen him, right? If you don't, old hippie guy, bushy, curly, gray hair. Mm-hmm. He was the quarterback's coach, but he was like Carroll's spirit animal, but also his whisperer. Like he was the one who was telling him about game situations and timeouts, I think, in his ear.
Yep. That was Tater, yeah.
Okay, the fact his nickname was Tater is great. What if Lynch was that for Carroll? And he's telling him when to do like analytics and timeouts.
Yeah, no, I'm all for. I also just think generally it'd be a good hire for the Raiders. I actually wrote about that for our Raiders guy here at the Athletic, Tashawn Reed. I think he's dropping that story. Might have been today. I haven't looked, but okay. I think Pete still got it. I don't think he forgot how to coach. You look at the teams that are winning. A lot of them are winning in the style that Pete would want to win. Maybe perhaps without all the fourth down conversion attempts in Washington. Other than that, the teams are pretty much playing a version of Pete ball, particularly in the run game.
But remember when Pete was aggressive with the fourth downs, and then he started to chicken out.
Yeah, because you have to be able to accept the failure part of it, and it's interesting. Pete wasn't more aggressive consistently because, as you know, he's an eternal optimist. He always thinks something's good is going to happen. But for the coaches who don't like to go for it on fourth down or go for 2-point conversions, their apprehension is the fact that you might not get it. And it was always weird to me that Pete's brain defaulted there. It's like, well, if we don't get it, it's a turnover at midfield or something. It's like, who are you to think about the negatives, Pete? I've never known you to be that way. You always think something good is going to happen. And he had Russ, who thought the same way as well. I was always surprised that he was relatively conservative and with things like that, considering how his brain was wired to always envision the positive outcome.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it would be great. I'd love, that whole Raiders that we've laid it all out would be just fantastic, man. We
done hired half their staff for
them. We've nailed it for them. You can Brady, you can thank us later. We've completed your coaching staff. Hey, Mike, we've talked a lot about the decisions with Geno in the offseason and DK, and we could talk about that all the time. One name that we've talked maybe a little bit we talked about. And I think you've written about it just in terms of, what they're going to do defensively and, in cap casualties and then looking ahead to contracts. This year and this offseason for Tariq Woolen is what? Do you think they allow him to go into that final year? Do they approach him about a contract or do they hold off, you think?
So from Reek's perspective, let's pretend to be his agent. I'm calling John right away. Like, let's do something. Let's get something on the books. My guy, I forget how old Reek is, but my guy's a young premium player. You know that at his best, he can cover whoever. He's already been a Pro Bowl guy. I think he received all pro votes his rookie year. Like he can play. He's got good ball skills. You know it when he's at his best, John. So go ahead. Let's do it now. Because if you wait and my guy balls out again, you're looking at a guy who is probably going to have a certain number of picks. He's going to be he's going to have all these great numbers. And that cornerback market is going to get crazy. I think this year, this offseason in particular, if you wait, you're hurting yourself with guys like Sauce Gardner's up. Derek Stingley Jr. is up. I think another guy that I'm missing is up. So if you wait, it could get expensive. So if I'm Reek's guy, I'm like, let's do it. Now let's pretend to be the Seahawks. Your guy is good, ... when he's locked in.
Oh.
If I pay you, I need to know that he's going to be. Can I trust that? I think that's legitimate. Both sides have legitimate points because when Reek's not locked in, we've seen his own coach said it. When he's not locked in, he makes mistakes and mental errors, and it hurts the team. When he is locked in, he can cover literally anyone in the league. So I would anticipate that pushback from John's side, Seahawks side, whatever. It's like, hey, we love Reek. We drafted him. He's been great, but premier cornerback money requires a down-to-down, game-to-game level of consistency. So let's wait. Let's wait and see. Maybe they draft a corner, revisit it in training camp. I think he's probably going to end up having to wait. But if I'm his people, I'm like, let's do it. Kobe Bryant's people too. Let's lock this in now. Let's do it now before that price goes up or before my guy gets hurt. You got to look at it both ways.
You and Chris Kidd, by the way, people don't know. Remember when I say Chris, Christopher Kidd, sorry, if his mom is watching or listening. On the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, in the latest one, talked about, hey, what could the Seahawks learn from watching the Rams? So what could they learn? What could they learn about what's transpired this year and then for themselves in the playoffs? What was your guys' takeaway for what they could learn?
Not just the Rams, but all these teams, man. Build those trenches. Look at that, Puck. Look at that Rams D-line, man. It is – how do you lose Aaron Donald and your D-line gets better? That is ridiculous. They just hit – up front, they're having, not to the same extent, but a very similar like 2010 to 2012 Seahawks draft run between drafting Byron Young, also Michael Hoyt too, but like Michael Hoyt, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. These dudes are all nails. I mean, the Seahawks saw it. They were kicking the Seahawks' ass in that first game in particular. Braden Fisk looked like Aaron Donald in that first game against the Seahawks here in Seattle. Like that, build those trenches, man. You can do it. I think in particular, the one thing they can learn is like, if you have guys graded similarly, you should probably default to the trenches. Like that should be your default. Like I think in the same draft where they got Byron Young and Kobe Turner, the Seahawks passed on the opportunity to take both of those guys and took Zach Charbonnet. Where it's like, I don't know where those two guys on the Rams were on their board, but it's like, man, if I'm not sure, go ahead and give me the lineman because the ROI on that I feel like is just so much higher. If we hit on an edge guy, hit on a D lineman, because that's how they rebuilt their team. Because their DBs are just kind of whatever. I like Ahkello Witherspoon, Seahawks legend Ahkello Witherspoon. But the DBs are just kind of whatever. And I feel like they've decided if we're just so nasty up front, we can just have some frisky guys in the back. And then on the other side, they paid a bunch of linemen up front, kind of rebuilt their O-line, kind of that post-Andrew Whitworth kind of era where they were super good, won the Super Bowl. And went to a Super Bowl as well. So I just think this should be a wake-up call for John and Mike, maybe not for Mike, because I feel like he knows this too. It's like, guys, we got to build that out. We can have all the skill talent we want. We need fat dudes. We need it. We need big boys. Because Chris and I also talked about tubs
of goo, man.
We also talked about, Puck, an interesting what if is, in that same 2023 draft, the Seahawks had 2 first-round picks, as did the Eagles. The Eagles took Nolan Smith, and they took Jalen Carter. The Seahawks took Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Not to say the Seahawks were wrong, but it's like, who would you rather have? I think that's a good, interesting kind of what if. The Eagles built their trenches out, and they're killing it right now in the playoffs.
It's going to be two straight years of, I wonder if we look down the road of regret for them. Passing on Jalen Carter. And again, I know all the red flags that were out there, and I remember all of that. I remember the debate. And then this past year of, the 2 guys that were selected after Byron Murphy, especially Verse. Those 2 guys are up for the AP Rookie of the Year on defense. And I don't know how we evaluate Murphy. Murphy's a tough one to evaluate. I know we're going to get into it here in just a quick second because, I mean, the stats aren't there. But then you're like, well, they improved in their run game or their defense of the run. They went from 31st to 16th. And how much is he a part of it? I mean, I don't know, but I'm going to assume he's got a large hand in it because he was playing a lot. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to look at those 2 straight years and go, did we draft the right guys?
Yeah, and every draft, it feels like there is, like, hey, it should have took this guy. 2017 draft is just loaded with huge what ifs, positions of need too. I think that's where they missed. They didn't take Kittle, didn't take Buda Baker, didn't take TJ Watt. Had a chance to get all those type of guys. So in these last couple of drafts, yeah, it could be what if. I think Spoon was a great pick for what it's worth over Jalen Carter. Like, I think that will end up being a push when it's all said and done. But I mean, it's tough right now, Puck. We see Jalen Carter killing it in the playoffs, man.
I agree with you, and I'm going to be a hypocrite because I think I remember going back and looking at the draft that I was lukewarm on Jalen Carter, and not because of his ability, but that whole thing with the accident and everything that transpired. And I guess me looking into it was like, is this a window and how he's going to be a teammate, and is he just going to drive away from an accident and then not work, not have any care for what happened in that situation? Is he going to be a problem in the NFL? Well, I mean, he's answered that, has not been a problem in the NFL, and you're right. I keep going back to that play last week, against the Rams. He just ragdogs that guy out of the way, the offensive lineman, and sacks Matt Stafford to end the game. It's just something that, God, you look at him and you're like, that's what they've been missing. They've been missing that enforcer in the middle. And you thought you were going to get with Murphy this year, but you didn't. And again, he's a rookie. I understand that, but you didn't see that out of him in 2024.
Yeah, it's really tough because there were so many red flags and they were understandable why you pass on it. I think the Eagles also had a different infrastructure set up where half their damn defense is from Georgia.
Right.
So it's just like Jalen's back with the homies, they got secondary guys from Georgia too. Very, very clearly where Howie Roseman is scouting his defense.
Their whole team is Georgia. You're right.
So I think that helps too, that he gets to play with Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and Keely Ringo, I think, is over there too. Like, they just have so many guys who he's familiar with and not hold him in check or accountable, but it's just different when you have those guys. Same thing with the Rams. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse played together at Florida State. So how much of that is helping them as well, so you got to take those things into account as well. But it feels like if you just default to, all right, we have this guy graded similarly as this guy plays receiver, this guy plays center. The center it is. I feel like if that's kind of your default, you just over time that is going to be more healthier for your roster. I feel like.
Hey, let's see. You wrote about this, just kind of doing a recap, a review of the 2024 draft class. Let's go through it. Let's start with Murphy first. What was your thoughts of the 24 campaign for the defensive tackle out of Texas?
I think he was really good, Buck. I think the context that gets lost, and I tried to write about this too, or at least mention it. He was like defensive tackle 3 on the depth chart. If you just look at it that way, very few third defensive tackles, I don't care what defense you're on, are putting up numbers. It's just hard. Defensive tackles, A, don't put up numbers. And B, if you're the third guy for reasons that are not his fault, it's just hard to like really put up numbers. Whereas guys like Jalen Carter and Braden Fisk, they're starters from the jump. And you just get different opportunities to put up numbers when that's the case. So I think for the role he was in, he was really, really good. I think when their run defense turned around, he was like 40% of it, maybe like 30, 35. The other big chunk was Ernest Jones. They both returned to the lineup got in the lineup around the same time. And you look at the splits from when Ernest and Byron played together, and then when they weren't on the team or weren't in the lineup, they couldn't stop me and you from hitting the C gap, right? So I think that Byron played really, really well. I do think what's going to be key for next year is I think you got to, that transition that Tyler and JSN basically had, like, hey, I was the guy here, Jax. Now you're the guy. Whether Tyler accepted that role, cool. I think Jay Reed's got to do the same thing. It's like, all right, I was the guy, I was leader dude, playing every down, blah, blah, blah. All right, Murph, it's you now. It's you and Leo. You guys take over. I'm still on the team. Like, he should resign, but now he should be Jonathan Hankins.
Okay.
He should be the veteran backup nose tackle early down guy, and Murph should be the new guy. Just how Tyler took that step back for Jackson, I think that should be the same thing. And I use that analogy with Jackson and Tyler because I think if that happens, Jackson will have the same boom, or excuse me, Murph will have the same boom that Jax did. He will have those, because remember the same thing last year after Jackson's rookie year. I was like, oh, it was okay. Look at some of the other guys who popped, Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers in his class. Well, now look when actually he got a chance to be the guy. He's just as good as Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, even Puka, So I think once Murph gets that, I feel like that's going to be the offseason move. They're going to be like, all right, Jay Reed, love you. When you come back, you're Hankins now. You're a Taba Rubin now. You're the veteran leader guy now, but the young buck is who we're building this thing around.
Christian Haynes.
Oh boy. No, you know what, Puck? I loved, this is where, man, the results of a draft can kill you more than the process. I loved the process of Christian Haynes. You got a guy who had played a bunch of ball. He had played one position. You were drafting him to play that position. Because, before they were like, oh, he played tackle at whatever. But let's make him a center here. Tom Cable was doing all that funky stuff. They were like, nope. Christian Haynes played like 50 starts at guard, played like 5 years in college. Let's draft him, have him play guard. Like, it just made sense. The process was good. He was good in college, and that didn't just play a bunch. He was actually good. And boy, did that just not pan out like at all. It was good process, I thought. Terrible result. And looking back, I do think something that was predictable, and this is going to sound a little funky. We're just now analyzing his body. But if you look at Christian Haynes, he is a very top-heavy fella and a very light guy lower, very skinny legs, small quad thighs, and that shows up on Sundays.
You want it the other way around. Yep.
Yeah, you want a guy with some junk. I mean, the older I get around and be around the game, I see why all these measurables, like, and all these like old scout adages and stuff, like they do matter. Like, I need a guy with some junk if you're going to play guard, because otherwise you're just going to get knocked backwards. And Grubb told us week in and week out that was Christian Haynes' problem. That's why he wasn't on the field, because he didn't have the power and the play strength. So I feel bad for him on that.
All right, what about Tyrese Knight and then AJ Barner?
I think AJ that's going to be a really good. I think that's tight end one, man.
Yeah,
I think he's got a shot.
I really like him. Yeah,
I think and he's got that attitude you need as a tight end. Look at when he gets the ball.
Yeah,
he just is like out of bounds. What is that? He's where's a guy wearing a number 20 something that I can run over? That's his bag, and I love that. He was always a good blocker at Michigan and at Indiana, so I love that. I think Tyrese Knight, another good process, though. Tyrese's process was very similar as Christian Haynes. What did Tyrese do at UTEP, wherever he played? Man, he tackled everybody. Like 140 tackles every year or something like that. What did he do this year? He led all rookie linebackers in tackles. Had like 88, playing half the damn year. Like, the process was good. They needed a tackling machine. They got one, like in the fourth round. I think they had some good process with a lot of these picks, I feel like. Just didn't have the firepower. There's no star power in this class, though. You just got, it's good players at a time where they really needed to have a draft like the Rams had, unfortunately. We
won't get into the other guys. You got Pritchard, you got Laumea, and then you got Michael Jarrell, the tackle. What overall you would give it a grade? It's like a C plus, probably. Like, it's okay. I'm dinging them quite a bit unfairly, maybe, for just drafting DJ James and him not even making the practice squad. That's just really lighting the draft pick on fire. Like, I don't think every draft pick in the 5th or 6th round needs to be a stud, but damn, he should make the team. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just, I don't know what went wrong with that eval, but that's pretty rough for me. Taking a couple 6th round offensive linemen that don't pan out right away, I'm not really mad at you. That's, especially one played at D2 ball. I'm not really tripping that he wasn't ready, but I thought the process was good on it. But if you want to talk about the results, it was just kind of okay. They had an okay draft. Kind of reminds me of the 2020 draft. Like, it was fine. Jordan Brooks, D-Lou, and some guys who could contribute, Colby, DJ Dallas. Like, it was fine, but I feel like you needed that to really pop. Darryl Taylor was in that draft too. But yeah, it was okay. You passed. Get a passing grade. Well, that's how I got through college, Mike. So sometimes just passing is okay. I don't know about building a football team, but through college, yeah, I passed and I made it through. Hey, Puck, when I figured out that these comm graduates didn't need to be like magna cum laude or whatever, I said, oh, wait a minute. I just need like a 3.0 and I'm good. I can go get a job at a newspaper when I get out of here. That's why it's a great degree that we received over there. Mike, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you next week. Go read all of Mike's work at The Athletic. Listen to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast that he does with Chris Kidd and any and everywhere where you find your podcasts. All right, Mike, we'll chat next week. Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. There he is. Michael-Shawn Dugar, the Athletic, at Mike Dugar. Co-host Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast. You can find it up on YouTube later. When you're there, subscribe on the podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify. It will be available there as well with the full show of the Daily Puck Drop. When you're there, please rate the show later and also leave a message. Mike Dugar, I should mention this, brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, georgetownbeer.com. Check out their new Tavern Beer domestic style lager, folks. Easy drinking domestic style lager. Fresh and new at Georgetown Brewery. georgetownbeer.com is the website. All right, before we cut out of here on the Daily Puck Drop, we end every show with Hey, What the Puck, which is brought to you by Restoration One. We're going to get to that in a quick second. I'm going to stick to the Dan Hurly for Hey, What the Puck. I do want to mention it because I didn't get to it, the Mariners' error. And you're like, well, what's the Mariners' error? Because we didn't touch on it. We got 20 days until pitchers and catchers report. They still haven't done anything significant to improve the baseball team. We'll see if they do anything. Divish telling us yesterday on the Divish podcast, go and listen or watch it. He doesn't expect anything new to happen, anything of significance to happen between now and the start of spring training, which, again, 20 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting. And then it's a few days after that. Then it's a full squad workout. So this looks like their team right now. And Divish saying yesterday as well, they're waiting for kind of the Alex Bregman situation to work itself out. They are not players in Alex Bregman. Doesn't fit the profile of the ballpark is the message. Okay, what I can't stomach is we don't want to sign Alex Bregman because of the cheating scandal. Who effing cares? And who cares that he played with the Astros? You're not going to sign. So you're telling me because one of the things, the comments was, I think it was a story on MLB.com that because he played for the Astros, there would be some type of personality conflict because he played there. Well, let's just, in a hypothetical world, Yordan Alvarez was available for the Mariners to get. Are they not going to go pursue Alvarez because he played for Houston? Let's say Altuve wanted to play in Seattle. Would Mariners fans and management say, nah, not for us? Can't do it because he wore a wire to tip off what pitches he was getting. And it wouldn't gel with the guys in our clubhouse. I mean, come on. Talent wins out. I don't care about that. They don't want Alex Bregman because he costs too much money. That's why they don't want him. He can make up all these other excuses about doesn't fit the profile of the park or the teammates wouldn't get along with him. That's not the reason. The Mariners' error is this, and I do think that they're going to solve this, and I think they'll make a change, and I don't think that they knew, and of course not. If they knew, they wouldn't have done this. I just don't think that they, and I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't even think to check the date if I were them. Just think, hey, does this date work? We'll do it here. And I don't think you had anybody inside that Mariners office that was like, well, is there anything significant on that day? Maybe they did, and then they realized that, oh, we still want to do it on this date, and we're going to pay our respects as well. But for those who don't know, when they honor Ichiro August 9th and retire his number, as many people have pointed out on social media, that is the 80th anniversary that the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Nagasaki, killing over 100,000 people in Japan. Now, if they were aware of that and went ahead with that date, that is not a good look. If they are unaware of it, which I'm going to believe them that they were unaware of that this is a mistake. I understand that. Do I think that they're going to fix this and maybe move it or do something different? I would think so. Maybe they don't, but again, they're going to receive a lot of criticism from this for having August 9th be the day that they honor him and retire his number. Now, again, I'm going to say, to be fair to the Mariners, I just think that this was an oversight and it's a mistake, and mistakes happen. And I don't think people should crush them for this. Other than, hey, we knew about it and we just decided to do it anyways, then I think it's, not the best time and certainly not the best day to choose. But if they were made aware of it yesterday, that August 9th was that day, and that's the 80th anniversary of that, maybe they'll consult and make a different decision on when they want to honor Ichiro. All right. That was the rundown that I didn't get to with the Mariners error. All right, let's wrap it up with Hey What the Puck. Again, brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. It is your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. We talked earlier. I don't have Chiefs fatigue, but I've got Dan Hurly fatigue, and I like Dan Hurly, and I like that he's kind of in your face, and he's brash, and he's super confident, and he's a hell of a basketball coach. But his act on the sideline is wearing me out and wearing, I think, a lot of other sports fans out. And it started early. I mean, it started early in the Maui. Remember the Maui Invitational? He got kicked out. Did he get kicked out of both games? He got kicked out of one. Bunch of technicals. He was losing his mind in Maui. And that whole episode of him losing his mind and throwing fits on the sideline, stomping his feet and berating officials, which he's always been one to go after officials, but this is like really over the top, has continued into the regular season. And then it came to a forefront this week where he's yelling at a ref and a ref's yelling back at him. The ref did the wise thing to turn his back and walk away, so he saves Dan Hurly from giving him a technical, because that's what refs do. They turn it, rather than engage, they turn their backs, let the coach let off some steam so they don't have to call an error or call a technical. And Dan Hurly responds, "Don't you ever effing turn your back on me. I'm the best effing coach in this league in college basketball." Oh, my God. I mean, that's one of the most narcissistic things you could ever utter. I mean, he is the best basketball. I mean, he is. But come on, man. You don't need to tell everybody that. And then his press conference afterwards about, they're focusing on me and they're always showing me all the time. I'm not saying the other coaches don't lose their mind. No one loses their mind on the sideline like this guy. It's him and Mick Cronin. Those two neck and neck for the most lunatic coaches on the sidelines. Just chill out a little bit. Okay, you're a great coach. Everyone knows it. You don't need to tell everyone. But the Dan Hurly experience is getting a little obnoxious for me. All right, that's Hey What the Puck. Brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. It is your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Give me your call at 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Thursday edition of the Daily Puck Drop in the books. Full show up on YouTube. So when you're there, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. I try to address as many comments as I possibly can when I'm not coaching Whitman basketball. Go Wildcats. First game coming up on Saturday against Denny Middle School. If anyone has any dirt on Denny Middle School, JV basketball, send me an email, puck@pucksports.com. I need a scouting report on Denny Middle School. Full episode up there. We'll also have episodes of the Garafolo show and Michael-Shawn Dugar up on YouTube. For the podcast platforms and Apple and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, we just podcast the full show, timestamp everything for you for the audio listeners. And so when you're there, please leave a rating. Also, leave a review on those podcast platforms. We always appreciate all the support. Thank you for checking in. I know you got a lot of options out there in the world. So for those who've chosen to watch and listen to today's show, from everyone over at Puck Sports, which is one, thank you for the support as always. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Friday edition. As always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no dice.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!